As we turn the page to the second half of the season, we look at the biggest storylines the rest of the way, including the offense, which was lackluster again on Tuesday. And more importantly, what does this team need to do, not just to get to the postseason, but to win in the postseason? We'll discuss all that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, and welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jake Mastriani. You can follow me on social media at ShortstopBall. Check out the podcast there as well as LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. If you're new and watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button as well. Enjoy hearing from you. Enjoy seeing you added to the Locked On Braves community. Leave me a comment in the comment section below on YouTube, or like I said, hit me up on social media. You're listening on the audio version. Thank you so much for your support. You can leave me a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Today, we're going to talk about Tuesday's game. Ronaldo Lopez, is he getting tired? Does he need a break? Seems like he's not going to get one. Offense unable to play small ball. The Giants are. Ultimately leads to a loss. We're also going to focus a lot on second half storylines. What do we need to see from this team the rest of the way? I know we're not quite to the All-Star break yet, but we're technically in the second half of the season mathematically. Use it kind of as a reset. Where does this team need to get to in order to feel confident of them being able to do anything in the postseason? If they can even get to the postseason, which is now a question for the Atlanta Braves. We'll discuss all that today and get you set up for Chris Sale going on Wednesday against the Giants. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB and use code all lowercase LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's talk about Tuesday's 5-3 loss to the Giants. Braves are 2-4 in their last 6 games now. Had the series win against the Pirates, but, couldn't win the series in St. Louis. That game in Chicago, that's just never going to go away for me. And then you start out this series with the loss to the Giants. They've scored 1-0, 6, 2, and 3 runs in those 6 games. So, again, looked like maybe the offense was going to snap out of it. And here we are getting dominated by some guy with the last name Birdsong. You were up 2-0 early in this one. You got the back-to-back home runs. Thought maybe this was going to be another game where, on a night where home runs were plenty in Major League Baseball, including for the Giants in this same game. And you couldn't really put much else together after that. So another just disappointing game, a disappointing loss, disappointing performance by the offense. But let's start with Ronaldo Lopez. 4 1/3 innings, 4 hits, 4 walks. Remember, I talked about it coming in, previewing this series. The Giants walk a lot. They're very patient hitters at the plate. You got to throw them some strikes, make them beat you. And Ronaldo just wasn't able to do that. Only allowed 2 earned runs, though, both of those coming on solo home runs. Still got 6 strikeouts. Had to throw 101 pitches, though, to get through that 4 1/3 innings. And he gave up 8 hard hits. Had an average exit velocity against 100 miles per hour. That's not good. It was the shortest outing of the year. Only the second time that he hasn't gone 5 innings. He's still been really good at limiting runs, and that's what you ultimately want from a starting pitcher. But there just seem to be general signs of fatigue. Again, I talked about it the last 2 starts. He's really had to grind just to get through 5 innings in his last 2 starts. And so coming into this one, it seemed like more of the same. So I thought maybe the Braves might try to go to a 6-man rotation, see if they can get through the rest of this first half leading up to the All-Star break, maybe only giving him one more start. Instead, after the game, Lopez says he's going to start on Sunday on regular rest, which they've only done for him once this year. So you have a guy who's only started on regular rest once this year. He's clearly looks tired and fatigued. And now you're gonna start him on regular rest. I don't understand the thought process. I understand it from the standpoint of you're playing the Phillies, you're playing the team you're trying to catch in the NL East. But is it is it what's best for the pitcher going forward? I don't think so. And look, I'm not ready to give up on the NL East quite yet, but you're 9 games back at the halfway mark. Phillies have shown no signs of slowing down, even while missing Harper and Schwarber. I've said it all along. Yes, I want to win the division. I want to beat the Phillies, but not at the cost of wearing out your guys in the regular season to try to run them down like you did in 2022 with the Mets. And it feels like this is what they're doing here, which is not what they've been doing all year. There have been series this season where you had, I believe there was one series where you had Chris Sale lined up to start the finale in a game or in a series that you could win. It was a rubber game of a series, and you had one of your better pitchers set to go, and you pushed them back and brought up, a Winans, Elder, whoever it may be, to pitch that finale instead of trying to win the series with your best pitcher who would be on regular rest. And now you're in a situation with a guy who clearly looks fatigued, but you're going to leave him in on regular rest, which you've only done once this year because you really want to win this series against the Phillies. I don't know how to – I don't know how to feel about it. I guess you can tell by my emotions. I don't feel great about this. Look, you don't have any off days the rest of the way. It's going to be very difficult to not have Ronaldo Lopez start 2 more games. And then he's going to get a big break, at least 10, 11 days, depending on how you shake things out after the All-Star break. He's going to get a week and a half of rest after this. But I just feel like the guy needs a break. He's going from a reliever to a starter's role. Even with the extra rest, he seems to be getting tired. The command's just off. The stuff is still very good. I'm still very excited about Ronaldo Lopez. Again, even in this stretch here where he hasn't been able to go deep into games, he's done a great job of limiting runs. But it's just a guy that, in my view, and again, I'm not in the dugout, I'm not in the clubhouse, so they certainly know better than I do, but he certainly looks like he's getting tired, and they're going to push him on regular rest, 4 days rest, when they've only done that once all year. So I just personally don't think that's a great decision. Now, as far as the offense, it's home run or bust. I mean, we've discussed it for a while now. They have to find other ways to score, and it really comes down to that 5th inning. They tried to play small ball, and they did it. They executed it perfectly. Adam Duvall with a great at-bat, and he's had better at-bats here lately. He has a great at-bat to start the inning, earns a walk. Forrest Wall comes up, lays down a perfect drag bunt. You got first and second. Your 7 and 8 hitters get on base. And so the next logical thing to do is put down a sacrifice bunt with your number 9 hitter, who is Zach Short. He gets it down. He moves runners to second and third with 1 out for the top of your order. Jared Kelenic, been one of the best hitters for the Braves over the last month. Just can't put the ball in play. And it's not the typical at-bat we've seen from Kelenic here lately. He got ahead 2-0. He was laying off the off-speed pitches down, and then it's almost just another case of a Braves hitter knowing they're struggling, trying to do too much, and he can't lay off those changeups below the zone, and he strikes out. Just cannot happen. It can't happen in that situation. And then Ozzie comes up, swings at the first pitch, flies out to left field, and just like that, you get nothing out of it. And then on the flip side, in the top of the 6th inning, the Giants lead off the inning with a double at the bottom of their order. They move the guy over with a perfectly executed sacrifice bunt, and then they get him in on a ball that's put in play. It's charged an error on Austin Riley. I would like to see some of the best third basemen in the world try to make that play while you're playing on the infield grass. The ball hit 96 miles per hour that short hops you. You pretty much just have to stab your glove at it and hope that you pick the right spot. He gets charged for an error. That's a tough play, but the Giants at least put the ball in play. They forced the Braves to make a play, unlike what the Braves didn't do in the top half with a runner on third and 1 out, and they score the run. Here's this whole game really comes down to this right here for the offense. Giants hit 3 home runs, Braves hit 2. So they both had some power in this game, all solo shots. The Giants were able to score 2 runs without the benefit of the hit, one on the error that they charged to Riley and another on a sac fly. And the Braves weren't able to execute in those situations. They didn't have a lot of chances in this one either. And this is what is so frustrating about this offense right now. Typically, we talked about a lot last year, when this offense is going well, it's every inning they are putting pressure on the pitcher, getting runners in scoring position, having a chance, getting runners on base. They went 3 up, 3 down 6 times in this game. One of those times they had a leadoff walk, but it was later erased on a double play, which made it a 1-2-3 inning. That's not going to get it done. And it's really unfortunate because it feels like one tiny step forward, 3 big steps back for this offense right now, who just cannot put it together. But that 5th, 6th inning situation there where the Braves had 2nd and 3rd, 1 out, can't score a run. The Giants come right back, play small ball themselves, and they're able to push a run across. That was just this game in a nutshell. The Giants able to score in a multitude of ways. Braves only able to score really by the home run. You did get a run late after a Jared Kelenic double, and an Ozzie put the bat on the ball and found a hole up the middle to score a run. Just a little too late in this game, unfortunately. Did also want to mention Jared Kelenic's defense. 2 incredible catches in center field. The one on the ball that Matt Chapman hit, I thought for sure that was in the gap, scoring at least 1 run, if not 2, and he somehow tracked that down. Like, he should win a Gold Glove this year. I know we're only halfway through the season, but he should win a Gold Glove, at least for left field. He has been that good out there for the Braves. And I know he didn't come up in that spot. He's got to come through in that situation in the 5th, but he did at least get a double later, like I said, and scored a run. He's been very big for the Braves so far, especially over the past month or so. All right, next we'll turn our attention to the second half of the season. What are the biggest storylines to watch the rest of the way? What do we need to see from this Braves team the rest of the way? We'll discuss all of that here next. This episode of Locked On Braves is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. With summer travel heating up, especially travel for baseball games, it's time to explore those U.S. cities you have always secretly wanted to learn more about. Yes, we're even talking about your rivals' cities with hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com. You might just find your perfect stay even in your baseball rival's city. Again, nobody really wants to go to Philadelphia, but if you need to knock Citizens Bank Park off your bucket list just to fill up your map of stadiums that you've been to, make sure you go to Booking.com to make your plans for traveling to Philadelphia, New York, Washington, wherever you want to go this summer to watch your Braves play. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your rivals. Book today on Booking.com on the site or in the Booking.com app. And when you're making those plans, you shouldn't have to worry about buying tickets to your next big event, and you don't when you use Game Time. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They have last-minute killer deals, all-in prizes, views from your seats. Those 2 features right there are the main reason I continue to go back to Game Time. It's the only app that I use now for buying tickets to event. I've been telling you about them for a while. It's just so easy to use, and you get that all-in price up front. You know what you're paying, and you know what the view from your seat is going to look like, and you can do that right in the app. I used to have to go search online to try to find views of other people who have been to the ballpark and what it looked like from that particular section. You can do all that right within the Game Time app. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, even an hour after it starts. And you can find exclusive flash deals and sponsor deals as well for football, basketball, baseball, concert, comedy, theater, and more. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Again, download the app and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. If you like having sports on in the background all day, make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories of the day. You can find that on YouTube or in the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. All right, later this week, we will have our Around the League segment. We'll also have a mailbag podcast coming your way probably probably be Friday with July 4th. So we'll probably do that on Friday this week. But either way, look out from the post from LockedOn_Braves on X. Respond to your question there, reply there with your question to be answered on this week's mailbag episode. Also want to give a shout out to those who are here with me live. I see Jeffrey Humphreys in there, reminding people to subscribe and share. Thank you from that. Docs Cards, Double A, Johnny Quest, Emmanuel Fuentes, Braves Thrills, Ernest Polk with me here as well. Thank you so much for joining me here this morning. Hayden Harris, I see you in there too. Thank you so much. All right, let's get into our biggest second half storylines. And I think the big thing that we have to be watching for going forward is the one thing I don't think anybody thought we would really be focusing on this year, and that is the offense. What happens with this offense going forward? Do things just magically pick up? Does Manfred Major League Baseball suddenly slip in the regular baseballs that start traveling more? Does just the summer heat cause the baseballs to start traveling more? And we see the home runs tick up. Again, like we've seen really around baseball the last 2 weeks. Hasn't really led to a lot of runs for the Braves as the offense has been down the last 6 games. But just generally, home runs pick up in the summer months, as we know. Does that help this Braves team get going? Should we be counting on that? Or do we need to be looking for players to help the Braves score in different ways? Do they need to be changing up the philosophy of the offense, which is hard to do right now because you have the team that you have right now. And I've been talking about it all week, so I'll just continue saying it. I'm very much a believer right now that when you're looking at guys to upgrade the offense at the deadline, you got to start looking at players that do a multitude of things well. And obviously that's what you want in every player. And that's kind of the next, I guess, second half storyline to watch as we gear up for the trade deadline is who does Alex Anthopoulos get and can they fix things? I've heard people comment on social media saying, they got to go out and get a quality starter to make any noise in the postseason. I've seen some people say there's just no point with this team and even doing anything, that it's hopeless. I don't believe that. I do believe that you need to go out and get 2, maybe 3 bats. I mean, I think you got to replace Forrest Wall. I mean, I love the guy. I'm glad he's getting somewhat of an opportunity, but I think you need to make an upgrade there. You definitely need to make an upgrade over a Zach Short. You probably even need to make an upgrade over Ramon Laureano. Obviously, Michael Harris is coming back at some point, but I think there's at least 2-3 spots on this Braves roster that need to be upgraded with major league players at this point. And again, we've talked about it this week, but I think maybe the more important thing to watch is what type of player does AA target at the trade deadline? Does he continue to build a roster strictly with guys that have high exit velocities and maybe have higher strikeout rates? Or does he look for someone that's maybe more contact oriented, that's going to put the ball in play? Again, you would love both, but those players are very rare. I mean, the guys who don't strike out a lot, rack up high exit velocities, those are very, very rare types of players. I am of the belief right now that I think you need to go out and we had the conversation yesterday. It's really a Cody Bellinger, Luis Robert conversation. Luis Robert's kind of more what you already have. High exit velocity type of guy, can strike out a lot, not necessarily a high on base guy. And then it's a Cody Bellinger type who has turned himself into more of a contact-oriented, put the ball in play type of hitter. And I lean towards the Bellinger one. Not saying that's what's going to happen. Jesse Winker's a guy that I've talked about a lot as well. I think those are the guys that you need to be targeting. Also, what teams are actually going to be selling? I think that's a storyline. The Braves are playing several of those teams here over the next month leading up to the deadline. National League is just so jumbled up in the middle with all these teams around 500, and with the extra wild card spots, all these teams have a chance. So who is actually going to be selling at the trade deadline? I think it's something that we have to watch out for, at least over the month of July leading to the deadline. So those are my 2 top storylines in the second half. One is, what does the offense look like? How can they turn things around? What does Alex do to help fix this offense? My third storyline is, can the pitching staff keep it up? To this point, the staff is what has kept this team alive. They've been amazing, perhaps even exceeded expectations. What happens if they regress even slightly? And maybe we've already started to see that a little bit with Ronaldo Lopez, not necessarily in stuff, but just getting worn out and maybe getting a little tired. Somebody who hasn't thrown a lot of innings over the last several years as he's been a reliever. Could we possibly see that same thing with Chris Sale, who hasn't thrown a lot of innings over the past several years? I mean, those are big questions, because if the pitching staff all of a sudden starts to fall apart or take any steps back, it becomes a real struggle for this Braves team the rest of the way if the offense can't pick things up. Do the Braves continue to give these guys extra rest down the stretch? We've already heard it with Lopez. The Braves are planning on starting him on regular rest, and they've said they know they can't do that all year long. But do they do that in the second half still? If you're really trying to catch the Phillies, if that is really still the goal for the Braves, and I question whether that should be the goal. I think the goal should be to make sure you maintain that top wild card spot and have your staff healthy the rest of the way, rather than sacrificing everything to try to win the division and catch the Phillies. But if that is still their main goal, then I think you have to go to a 5-man rotation. I think you have to start Chris Sale and Ronaldo Lopez every fifth day. Are the Braves going to do that? I think that's a big question the rest of the way, because I think the best chance right now that I see for the Braves winning in the postseason is having this pitching staff healthy and pitching like they are now. And I think that's maybe one of the more important things for the second half of the season. The one that's always there, the storyline that's always there, is can they stay healthy? The Braves have been crushed by injuries this year. Again, you've lost the NL Cy Young favorite and the NL MVP favorite coming into the year. You've spent time without Ozzie Albies, Austin Riley, and now Michael Harris, Sean Murphy as well. They have been crushed by injuries this year. Can they avoid more damage, major damage, in the second half? This is a very deep team, and it's why they've lost all they have, and they're still in contention and still have a chance. But I just don't know how many more big hits they can take and be able to sustain. My next biggest storyline is the NL Cy Young race. The Braves currently have 3 starters in the top 6, according to FanDuel, obviously with Sale, Fried, and Lopez. I think Sale and Fried have the most likely chance, even though Lopez currently leads the league in ERA. But do Sale and Fried get the innings to, quote unquote, deserve the award? I've talked about it before. I think you have to at least get to that 170, 175 inning mark that Corbin Burns won it with a few years ago. If Sale can get to 180 innings and 220 strikeouts with a low 3 ERA, I think he has a really good chance, which would be one of the greatest stories of the season. And if he continues at these pace that he's on into the end of the season, I think hopefully this becomes a bigger story around baseball, because you're talking about a guy who a lot of people had written off, a guy who has gone through a lot of injuries, hasn't played in a while. He's in his mid-30s. To come back and do what he's done, if he continues to do that, I think it's going to be one of the better stories in baseball, especially a guy who, if he's, again, able to win it, and I think it's still going to be a tall task for him, Zach Wheeler exists, but a guy who's one of the best of a generation, but never won a Cy Young despite being in the top 6 in the voting 7 times. So I think it'd be a really cool story the rest of the way if Sale keeps it up. For Fried, he's just not that dominant guy that voters are going to fall in love with. So he would have to have a minuscule ERA and WHIP to really be in consideration. And then my final storyline, and it's crazy, this is my least interesting storyline, and I want to win the division, but can the Braves track down the Phillies? And I just think the things in front are more important, more interesting. Maybe not winning the Cy Young, but I think everything else on there has more of my focus than can the Braves erase a 9-game deficit in the second half of the season, which, again, I just don't want to completely give up on it. But, I mean, that seems pretty far-fetched for that Phillies team and how good that they are, that the Braves could catch them. It is a storyline. It is something to watch. You got several head-to-head games left with them. It's at the bottom of my list for a reason, because it's not as important to me as making sure that this offense gets to a place where it needs to be. It's not as important as making sure that this pitching staff is healthy and fresh down the stretch. Those things are just more important to me going forward than tracking down the Phillies. It does still make my list because I do want to win the division. I would love to see them come back and win. but it's just not as important as the other things that I've mentioned in front of them. So let me know, what are you looking forward to the most in the second half of the season? Which ones are most important to you? Let me know down in the comment section below. I see Double A saying the Phillies can have the division, so kind of with that as well. Double A also saying extra rest, weary on sale. But I still, again, I want to win the division. I know the team does too, but not at the expense of sacrificing your starting pitching and not having it ready for hopefully the postseason. Again, you got to get there first, and that's no longer a given for the Atlanta Braves, but I still believe they have the talent to get there. But it's all going to come down to, do they have the pitching healthy and ready to go come postseason time? We'll talk about Chris Sale here next, who will be on the mound Wednesday trying to even up the series with the Giants. We'll get into all of that here next. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. That's really all you got to do. What I'm doing right now, I'm logging into MLB. I'm searching for Chris Sale, and they have him for 8 pitcher strikeouts on a Wednesday against the Giants. All you do, pick more or less than that. They also have him for 4.5 hits and allowed, 1.5 walks, 44.5 pitcher score, 17.5 pitching outs. There's a lot of stat lines on here that you can pick from, and you can pick more or less on those and then watch the winnings roll in. Looking for Marcell Ozuna, they have him at 0.5 home runs. You think Ozuna hits a home run today, you pick more on that. 1.5 total bases for Marcell Ozuna. All these stat projections on here, all you got to do is pick 2 to 6 of these stat projections and pick more or less. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. Turn $10 into $1,000, and PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. Pitching matchup for Wednesday, Jordan Hicks versus Chris Sale. And Jordan Hicks is maybe a little bit of a cautionary tale with what we're seeing for Ronaldo Lopez. On the season, Jordan Hicks at 3.36 ERA, very good, a 1.28 whip. Okay, 76 strikeouts and 85 and 2/3 innings. Kind of crazy because Jordan Hicks has always been that guy, to me at least, when he was with the Cardinals, as whether as a starter as a reliever, a guy that was going to easily strike out over a batter an inning. But his last 7 starts, 32 and 2/3 innings, a 4.96 ERA, a 1.56 whip, 16 walks to 36 strikeouts. So you've actually seen the strikeouts go up, but the production has not been as good for Jordan Hicks. He didn't go more than 5 innings in any June start. In April, he went 7, 6, 5, 5, and 6 innings. So it was an amazing month of April, and it's kind of been downhill since then for Jordan Hicks. He hasn't completed 6 innings since the month of April. And again, he's also making that switch from reliever to starter. So perhaps he's starting to show signs of fatigue, making that switch. Hopefully the Braves can take advantage of that against Jordan Hicks. Chris Sale, after striking out 33 batters in this first 31 and 2/3 inning, which is good, it's over a batter an inning, he has struck out 85 in his last 62 innings. He's had 8 or more strikeouts in 8 of his last 10 starts. He's gone 7 innings in 6 of his last 8 starts. I mean, what else can you say about Chris Sale at this point? Again, he's been one of the best pitchers in all of baseball the first half of the season. Hopefully that continues. Hopefully we don't see any signs of fatigue for Chris Sale in the second half. And again, the Braves need him on Wednesday. This offense just can't count on getting much from them. So you're going to have to put up as many zeros as you can. And Chris Sale's done that about as well as anyone this year. Giants are middle of the pack in strikeouts. We saw it in game 1. I talked about it coming into the series. They take a lot of pitches. They walk a lot. So Chris Sale doesn't walk a lot, throws a lot of strikes. Hopefully that works out well for him. They do have the 6th best OPS against lefties. So again, could be a bit of a tough matchup if Chris Sale doesn't have his good command. And with this Giants lineup that generally does good against lefties, might be a little bit of a struggle for Chris Sale in this one. But hopefully the Braves offense can get to Jordan Hicks, who again had an ERA near 5 or has an ERA near 5 over his last 7 starts. A little bit of news from Tuesday. Arcia didn't starting the game because of an abscessed tooth. We'll see when he'll be back. Zach Short going to get another chance for the Atlanta Braves at shortstop. Ramon Laureano might have to go on the IL. I don't know why I almost said EL, but he might have to go on the IL for the Braves. So they're essentially playing with 2 guys down on your roster right now. I don't know. I get that bench spots aren't as important anymore, but that just, again, with the guys you have at the bottom of your order, that doesn't feel like the best strategy right now to have 2 spots on your roster that you just can't use. I was looking up to see if Nacho Alvarez played for Gwinnett on Tuesday. He did. He was over 5 with a strikeout. So I know maybe there was some speculation that Nacho might get a chance with Arcia off and Nacho not playing on Sunday, but it looks like they're going to continue to keep him down at Gwinnett for the moment, and it'll be Zach Short, maybe Luke Williams that gets a chance at shortstop in Arcia's absence. All right, that will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for making it here till the end with me. Braves Thrills, Johnny Quest, Emmanuel Fuentes, still in here with me as well. Thank you so much for joining. I see Shadez made it as well. Thank you so much for being here live. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube if you're new. Hit that thumbs up button. Follow us on social media at shortstopball and LockedOn_Braves. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.